it is time. So the way I want to go about it now, it looks like a well, what you only have like 6 of these. Like, what are you going to talk about now? But that is not the way I'm doing things. I'm going to keep reusing this list, and we're going to keep another list in check with the actual scores. Okay. First place gives you 6. Second place gives you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. How many points you get, and whoever has the most points at the end is the first place and second place and third. Our categories: gameplay feel, content variety, and we're going to talk about them as well. We're going to talk about each and every one, right? MMOPVE, what does that mean? Means it is PvE content that requires you to interact with other players. I'm gonna explain that more when we get to it, because you might think Mythic Plus is MMOPVE. It is not. You don't actually interact with players, you play next to them. So we don't care about that. And Mythic Plus, for example, would go into the content variety. See the difference? Okay. MMOPV would be something like classic World of Warcraft world buffs. That would be MMOPVE. Dungeons in classic WoW would be MMOPVE, because you actually have to interact with the players. Mythic Plus in retail is not MMOPVE. World bosses in retail is not MMOPVE. Okay, you don't talk to anyone. Realistically, you honestly you don't even join a group. You are just a bunch of people doing a piñata. Then another category is PvP, and the last category is story. In my opinion, these 5 categories are the most important ones. However, I will add this later on, in a sense, as a side note. I'm not going to use this for points, but I'll tell you right now. There are 2 variations for gameplay. There's horizontal and there's vertical. Vertical, by default, for me, which is why I'm not going to put them into points. For me, by default, vertical deducts points. Like, no matter how bad or how good a game is, if you're a vertical progression, the highest rank for me would have been 4 out of 6. Okay, if you have 3 horizontal and 3 vertical, verticals will start at the 4th one. Even if like the first game that is horizontal, the worst game that is horizontal is so fucking bad, you would still be more in favor than a vertical progression. That's why I am not going to use that for the list, but I will mention it as what type of game it is if somebody actually thinks about playing them. Okay, in my opinion, horizontal is king. Like, it's not even close. All right. Now, our contenders. Even though I said it's top 5, you would see that there's actually 6 games on the list. Because, for the most part, people consider World of Warcraft and retail to count as one, but I do want to rank them separately. Like, if you ask like top 5 MMOs, you would just get World of Warcraft. Not really gonna get retail or classic, you're just gonna get World of Warcraft. Why? Because honestly, you buy sub for one, you get sub for the other. So technically, you get 2 games for the price of one. Either way, I'm gonna rank them separately, but essentially they are one. Does that make sense? All right. So first things first. Oh, sorry. One more thing for the rules. Okay. They are just ranked compared to one another. These are the top 5 MMOs. No questions about it. World of Warcraft, OSRS, Elder Scrolls Online, Final Fantasy XIV, and Guild Wars 2. These are the top 5. As much as I don't like OSRS, it is a top 5 MMO. It is what it is. Okay? So we're just ranking them compared to one another. That's why I don't want to use the numbers. Okay? Alright. Let's start with gameplay feel. Retail WoW. By far. It's not even close. It is the cleanest, the most impactful, the best looking, the most the numbers, like just the damage numbers. Everything about this game in terms of combat feel, top notch. It is. And I don't like World of Warcraft, but it is what it is. In terms of gameplay, it is top notch. And the only thing that comes even remotely close is classic WoW. Okay? And the only reason they're not the same is because there were overhauls done throughout the years, and retail feels better, smoother, less clunky, less annoying to use than classic. But in terms of, you know, the grand scheme of things, I would say they're practically the same. But if you had to choose one, I would choose retail. Okay? OSRS. You know it. I know it. In terms of gameplay feel, it is atrocious. It is the worst feel of any fucking game I've played in the last decade. Okay? It is on the level of the forthcoming. Actually, I don't know. I think the forthcoming might actually feel better to play. You ever played this game? It is basically OSRS feel with, in my opinion, a better story, a much more fun combat system, but it is extremely lacking in content, and all the content is the same, basically. So, and if this was a successful MMO, it would still not compare to OSRS because you cannot even run the amount of people. You literally do not have enough room here for even a fraction of the amount of people who are playing OSRS. Okay, if you have 100 people on the server, which by the way, I believe this is over server capacity, you will not be able to farm anything for your level. There will always be multiple people there. So, yeah. Anyways, gameplay feel, ESO. It is fifth. It is much better than OSRS, sure, but it is fifth. This is one of the, from like the good feels, this is one of the clunkiest, least telegraphed, most buggy combat feel I've ever had. Okay, out of like this list. Okay, I remember I played my Templar and I want to charge someone, and I got stuck on like a mini hill that was in the way. But it's like, so why are you charging if he's LOS? But he's not LOS. It's just that for some reason there was a little hill and it stopped my charge midway. And I still remember to this day how fucking annoying that was. Because that is like a 6-second cooldown or 8-second cooldown. And that is my gap closer. And I was playing Jab Templar. And I could not get to my target because of this fucking shit, which is supposed to charge at them and knock them down. This is like one of my only things. Sorry, it might not have had a cooldown, but I remember it just pissed me off. I don't remember. I don't even think that... actually, you might not have cooldowns in ASO. It has been a few years. But, yeah. In terms of feel, again, in this list, it is the worst feel. Final Fantasy 14. I'll give it 3. It is clean. It is smooth. It is technically like how Matt from Baylor Gaming likes to say. it is kind of like playing piano. There are combos that you need to follow. There's weaving in between, and you don't feel as bad when you make a mistake. Like, you made a mistake, not that bad. It's not that annoying. Okay? Not a fan of cooldowns. You know, long cooldowns, like a 45-second cooldown to a minute and a half cooldown, which is also what World of Warcraft has. I don't like that, but I think that moment of intensity is also has its like fun moment. Fun, you know, it's kind of fun in its own way. And fourth is going to be Guild Wars 2. I love the common of Guild Wars 2. This is my favorite MMO personally. But man, sometimes, especially with weapon swapping and canceling your own abilities because you're weapon swapping while the ability is being weaved. Let's say something has like a 0.5 second cool cast time. You're clicking it and you swap weapons too soon. It stops the ability, and it's like, fuck, man. Like, oh, like, why does this melee ability have a fucking casting time or casting animation? Like, fuck off. Why is this thing that has nothing to do with my character have a casting animation? Like, you know, like you send a spear at somebody. You don't have spears, right? Let's say I'm virtuoso, right? And I'm trying to send my blades at someone. And I'm clicking my F1. And right after that, I'm swapping my weapon. It cancels the F1. And also, it goes on a cooldown for like 2-3 seconds. So you can't even use it right away. Not a fan of that. You get used to it. It doesn't happen as often anymore. Like, almost never happens unless like PvP and I'm like fucking stressed out of my mind. But it happens. Alright, let's tally the points for these guys. So we got 6, we got 5, we got 1. Okay, ESO, we got 2. Final Fantasy 14, we got 4, and Guild Wars 2 is 3. Okay, because this is 6 points, this is 5 points. 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, then we're gonna add all of these numbers up later on to find out who is the actual top 5 MMO. Well, they're all top 5 MMO. Who is the actual top of the top 5 MMO? Okay. All right, next we got content varieties. Let's take these guys down. Whoa, 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 whoa. Bro, no. I guess I should have had like another one here. All right, you know what? I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna add this here. This is the YouTube thumbnail for the next video. And we're gonna do that. All right, cool. Starting with content variety. Retail, World of Warcraft. I gave it the 4th. Maybe I should do it like from bottom to top, actually. That would make more sense. Even though like once you get like the last 2, you kind of know. You know what? We'll do that. Okay. The worst content variety out of all of these MMOs. Classic WoW. There's really nothing to do in Classic WoW. You're leveling, have the same dungeons, you have like 4 raids. It's really bare bones, right? What is your content in Classic WoW? You have BGs, you have leveling, which is like whatever, okay, sure, content, okay. You have the dungeons, you have the raids, and you have battlegrounds. And world PvP. Sure. Okay? Though realistically, you don't have world PvP. Okay, most people play on a PvE server, and the ones who play on PvP eventually it's just a one-sided server, aside from like maybe the one off where it's like balanced. Okay? Realistically speaking, because BGs are out, world PvP is not really a thing. In my opinion, never was. World PvP is trash. Okay? Just my opinion. Alright. Number 5, we have Final Fantasy 14. It has basically exactly what Classic WoW has, but it has that weird dungeon, the puzzle dungeon. Forgotten the Savage dungeon. It has raids, it has trials, however, and has allied raids, but in my opinion, they all kind of like are the same kind of. You just queue into it and you fight a boss. It's not a bad thing. I love that aspect. I'm just saying, in terms of content variety, they're kind of the same. Allied raids, normal trial are essentially the same. Mechanics barely matter. They like if you have enough people who know the mechanics, it will be done. Okay, you can complete most trials, rail trials, with like half the team dead. Like it's not that big of a deal. Okay. So yeah. Next on the list you already saw. It is Retail WoW. In my opinion, it does have more content because of Mythic Plus specifically. It does have arenas. It does have BGs. It has the ranked system for them, but that's that's still the same content realistically. The raids, you have more technically from the raids. You get more bosses. Okay. World has some stuff. Farming old content is decent. The mini puzzle, not mini puzzle, but it's like the achievement puzzles that they have is kind of cool. They make like one per expansion or whatever, right? Transmog system, in my opinion, here is superior. Even though, yeah, Final Fantasy 14 has a transmog system. In my opinion, World of Warcraft has by far the most superior one, but definitely more superior to the point where I can call transmog here content. I don't know if I can call Final Fantasy 14's transmog as content. Like you do play around with your appearance, but I don't remember going too far out of my way to get the appearance. I kind of like, oh, this is what I have. I'm gonna use this and make my appearance. I didn't really go out of my way to farm it. World of Warcraft retail, man, I went really out of my way to farm some stuff. Okay. Next is Elder Scrolls Online. Elder Scrolls Online have basically similar to retail WoW. Okay. However, they also have the personal arena, which, by the way, if World of Warcraft kept the Mage Tower, I would say they're tied, and maybe even World of Warcraft would be ahead. But they don't have the Mage Tower on the regular. So in my opinion, Elder Scrolls takes the lead on that one. Okay, it does have the dungeons, it has the heroic dungeons. There's a lot more dungeons that are relevant at any point in ESO than there are in World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft only has like 8 per patch. ESO, they're always available. Again, horizontal progression. The World v World, Cyrodiil. Okay, is it Cyrodiil? Wait, where's Cyrodiil? Is that Cyrodiil? God, I don't remember. What is Cyrodiil? It is isn't Cyrodiil the World v World map in Elder Scrolls? Anyways, whatever. You have a 3-way battle on a large scale, kind of open world. It is a massive, massive world. I believe it is bigger than Guild Wars 2 World v World. Guild Wars 2, however, has multiple maps, so in that regard, it's not bigger. But in the map that you are in, it is bigger. Okay? Massive, massive battlefield with PvE and PvP involved. A lot of like fun 1v1s that you can have there. A lot of zerging, team versus team. It is actually, it's a lot. Okay, then you also have like the city of Cyrodiil, which is like an instance inside of this huge area where you go into the city and has sewers and has like the ruined city and whatever, and you like fucking battle shit out randomly. I've seen people like 1v20ing there, just like trying to assassinate people, trying to get people to follow them, and then just kill them and shit like that. Really, really cool stuff. Okay. And because of that practically endless content, which I can't say that World of Warcraft has, like being inside of Cyrodiil is literally, you can be there all day. It is endless content. It's not like you queue in and you fight it out. You can literally be there the whole day. That's why it's third place. Second place, I'll give it to RuneScape. You know I don't like this game, but in terms of content, it offers everything Elder Scroll does, and then some. I'm not talking about how great it feels here. I'm just talking about if you're already playing it and you don't mind the gameplay, who has more content? My opinion, RuneScape will have more content for you, more endless content for you to do than Elder Scrolls Online. I don't actually no, you know what? It also has the open world PvP. I think it's just called World PvP area, where you can just duke it out with other people. Okay, which is like a PvE and PvP zone, and killing players, you can steal their shit. Okay, so again, if you're into that, in my opinion, that offers much better variety of content. In my opinion, OSRS has an insane amount of variety of content. Okay, everything that all the other games offer, and then some more. And the only reason that number one is Guild Wars 2 is because this is an MMO list. Guild Wars 2 has the most MMO content compared to the other ones. Yes, old school RuneScape has the castle mode and the world PvP area and all that stuff. However, let's be real for a second. Most of it you are doing alone. Practically everything, except from like the castle war, which I don't even think is popular. I haven't seen anyone say anything positive about how live it is. Okay, the PvP scene in OSRS is pretty dead, but it exists. Okay, as well as everything else you can do. Okay, you have like the bosses, you have the world boss, you have the raids, like you have the, you know, the regular MMO stuff, the farming, the monster grinding, all that stuff. You have that. You have that in all of them. Okay, I just think Ultras offers more, and the only reason Guild Wars 2 is above them, in my opinion, Guild Wars 2 and OSRS offer a very similar amount of content. However, because this is an MMO list, Guild Wars 2 takes the lead because unlike OSRS, Guild Wars 2, after leveling, you are practically always in a group doing something. You're doing World v World, you're doing it with other players. If you're a solo roamer, that's cool, but for the most part, even if you're capturing... I like to play World v World sometimes, okay? Sometimes I'm just like, there's not much to do, there's no like commander in sight, whatever. I'm just gonna run around, capture camps, and like maintain my tier 6 bar, okay? I can't remember the last time I did that and not ended up in a group with somebody doing the same, to then eventually we're taking a tower, to then eventually we're like taking a keep because like, no, nobody's around. Like the enemy team that's controlling this, let's say red team, is not... I haven't seen a red dude in forever. Let's take a keep. Let's take their keep. Fuck it. It's not a tiered keep. It's clearly just like a base keep. I don't see any red players. Fuck it. Let's build a golem and build it at camp and fucking send it. I stole keeps with 2 or 3 players multiple times after we took towers, after we rotated camps and all that stuff. It always feels like an MMO content. You're doing what's it called? You're doing events. Well, where's the meta event? You go to a meta event, you have to be in a group of like 30 plus people, almost all of them. And usually there's some wait time, people start chatting. Pretty much almost every meta event I join, except ones that I'm like late to join, I get super lucky to join into because the map hasn't filled yet. I'm talking to somebody about some shit. If like we're just sitting there and waiting, we're just throwing memes around, playing with our cosmetics in front of one another. You're always doing everything with people, and that is why Guild Wars 2 takes the cake on this one. All right, so let's tally up the points, boys. All right, retail, that's a 3. Classic, that's a 1. OSRS, that is a 5. ESO, that's a 4. Final Fantasy 14, that's a 2. And Guild Wars 2, that's a 6. Alright. Moving on. I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna go from the 6th one all the way to the 1st. Next one. MMOPVE. First, let me explain what I mean, even though I explained a bit at the beginning. What is MMOPVE? It is PvE content that you have to do with people in the world, not just one or two. It has to be like a big group doing stuff together. Okay? For example, and interacting with one another with like some objective gameplay, okay? For example, World of Warcraft Classic, that would be considered MMOPVE when you go for a world boss. You have to coordinate this shit, okay? World of Warcraft Retail, doing a world boss, is not MMOPVE. You're not interacting with other players. You just go to the zone, and usually there's just players there waiting to beat this motherfucker up like the piñata he is. Okay? In terms of MMOPVE, in my opinion, the worst one is Elder Scrolls. You have absolutely no reason whatsoever, aside from maybe Cyrodiil, to ever interact with another human being in this world. Ever. Like, literally never. Instance gameplay is not MMOPVE. Instance gameplay is just instance gameplay. Okay? Queuing into a dungeon and getting a group automatically, never talking to them, and just going through the motion is not MMO. It's just instance gameplay. Okay? That is my definition of MMO. Obviously, that is not the definition of MMO. This is how I view MMO. Okay? Interacting with other players, having a shared objective, having to coordinate with other players, that is MMOPVE for me. And many players, not just one or two. Okay? So, ESO, aside from maybe Cyrodiil, and honestly, even Cyrodiil, you kind of just play alone. It is a very solo-centric MMORPG. Okay? Next on the list is... Ooh, I'm gonna get some hate for this. Or am I? Maybe I'm speaking the truth. OSRS requires practically zero interaction with other players for pretty much any of the content. All of the content is soloable. Not all, but like pretty much like 98-99% of the content is soloable. The raids are soloable. Should you do them soloable? No, but you can. You have no reason other than like maybe trading to interact with other people in this world. And honestly, I don't hate it for it. Most of the time when I play an MMO, aside from Guild Wars 2, I just play it to like kind of like do nothing, just kind of like, do my own thing and do whatever I want. And, if there are players nearby, that's cool, but like I mostly play solo. Okay, like that is my goal when I go into it. Many times. It just so happens that in games like Guild Wars 2, I'm always in a group and like there's always like something to say. But there are times when I'm just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna do some tier 1 rifts and like this map is like there's nobody here, so I'll just do them solo. Like it's not a big deal. Right? There are times queue into a PvP match solo, right? I don't consider that as an MMO interaction, it's just an instance. Fractals, that's not an MMO interaction, it's just an instance, right? So I have plenty of that in other games too, and I don't fault it for it. But if you're looking for the MMO feel in PvE, where you're interacting with other players, you are a bunch of you trying to achieve a common goal. You have to split into different objectives to do it. That is, in my opinion, what an MMO PvE feel like is. And OSRS and ESO just do not provide it at all, in my opinion. It can, but it really doesn't. Okay. Number 4. Man, this was a close call. They're kind of the same, honestly. I would say number 4 would probably be FF14. Because even though it is rare, in retail WoW, you can sometimes have an interaction with another human being. In FF14, you really don't. Trial, and by the way, I don't even hate I don't hate FF14 for it. I actually love it. Trials, queue in, do the boss, don't have to talk. Raid, queue in, do the boss, don't have to talk. Do your daily books from the thing, like, main quest, fucking, what do you call it? The main quest dungeon, regular dungeon, levels 60, 70, 80. Well, it's way back then. Now it's probably higher. Like I guess like 60, 70, 80, 90 dungeons now, whatever. Like the expansion dungeons. You do them. You don't talk to anyone. Maybe you say hi, GG, whatever. But like you're not really talking to them. It's like they can be NPCs. And honestly, you can do it with NPCs now. So there you go. Right? You have absolutely no reason, practically ever, in order to do the content, to interact with a living human being. However, you do need people to do the content. So in that regard, it is a bit more than OSRS. But you're never really interacting with them. Now that I think about it, maybe I should put OSRS under ESO, because ESO, at least you still play with players. But you never really see them. At least in OSRS, you see the players, right? Like you go to a town, there's a bunch of players. ESO, you really don't see players ever anywhere. So, I think they kind of balance each other out. I do think OSRS has a more MMO feel overall than ESO. So I'll give it that. But it's pretty close. FF14, you see a lot of players all the time, but you really don't need to interact with them. These are all pretty close. Same with this one. Exactly the same thing. You never have to interact with anyone. In all of these, you really, really don't. There's absolutely nothing you need to do with other players that requires you saying anything to them. Okay? They are all honestly very, very close. However, I do feel like because of Mythic Plus and even raiding in WoW, it does require you to communicate with other players sometimes. Mythic Plus almost never, but it happens. Raids usually happens, but you also need to interact with people to join the raid. I'm not talking LFR. If you want to do normal, if you want to do heroic, which is completely normal to pug, you are usually talking to people to some extent, even if in whispers. Okay? You're Red Paladin, there's one more Red Paladin, and you tell each other, it's like, oh man, how did we sneak into this? Back when Red Paladin was really not popular in raids. Okay? It's like I made a bunch of like Red Paladin friends. They're still on my BNet friends list, which I just don't open ever. Literally because we were both Red Paladins talking shit in whispers in a random raid we both joined, and we couldn't believe that we managed to join in. And then we started also competing with one another for for DPS. Talked about our builds during that raid. How come I'm doing more? Where am I saving my cooldown? If, let's say, we wiped. The heroic ones, like heroic pugs, you get wipes sometimes, like maybe 5 wipes per some bosses, right? So you get to converse, and he's like, dude, how are you doing so much more damage? I was like, oh, I'm waiting for this phase to pop my shit because I know the boss is not gonna move, yada, 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 right? And I know there's other mechanics that make me move, right? And sometimes he would do more damage. I was like, what build are you using? And it's like, oh, I went for crit build, and I was like, oh, bro, I'm like more on haste, like, holy shit, you know, like stuff like this. Okay, you don't get this interaction anywhere else. Why? Because you know there's less stuff to talk about. Final Fantasy 14, the gear is kind of there. Okay, it's just the gear. Like there is min maxing, but really doesn't matter. Okay, it's more about like knowing your rotation realistically. World of Warcraft is knowing your rotation, having the gear for your thing, maybe having this trinket that increases this and that, right? There are some things that like play a bit more, okay? Good shit. So yeah, that's why. Number 2. Yeah, it would be classic retail. Yeah. You gotta talk to people to do some of the elite quests. You gotta talk to people to get the world bosses. You gotta talk to people to get into dungeons. You gotta talk to people to get into raids. Okay, you gotta interact with other people. It has a much more MMO feel than these ones. Even though, in my opinion, you don't really need to like talk to them. You kind of just have to like have some diplomatic skills to converse with them so you can both go and achieve your own like the goals that you want. Okay, usually however most of the time these are people that are in your guild, but if we're talking about dungeons, especially while leveling, just leveling as a whole, which is probably the biggest aspect of WoW Classic, you are more likely compared to others by far to interact with other players and create some sort of connection, talk to them, all that stuff. Okay. But I mean, it's not even close. Just by the fact that meta events exist with multiple phases, multiple events, multiple the squad leader has to like make some squad shouts, whatever you want to call it, announcements for people to be aware of something that is coming up, splitting up the groups, having you interacting with your group, all that stuff. Okay, do you have to interact with them, like talk to them? No, but you also never have to talk to anyone, similar to like pretty much all of them. However, aside from like fractals, pretty much all content in Guild Wars 2 is meant for you to run in a group. There are events that you can do solo, but many of the important events, all of the important events and many of the regular events are group events. Okay, I would say majority of the events, I can't say majority because there are a bunch of small events that are like just random, right? But maps are literally built. So many maps are just built for you to run in a group of 50 people, you and 49 others, and split up on the whole map. Like literally the whole fucking map is designed for you to split up and do your own objectives to kill the bosses or boss. Depends on like the map, right? End of Dragons, what do you call it? Honestly, most of them require you to split to like 3 groups. Okay. Dragon's End map, literally a map designed around the meta. You have to do events before the event starts to get damage and health boost in order to open the chest at the end. The event itself have you split into 3 groups. Ideally, you also spread out your boons, like your buffs, across these groups. Okay. Then you have to split one of the groups into 2 once more. And then during the boss fight, you again split into 3 groups, which usually are the same groups you already split into. Okay. You split those 3 groups into 2 for one phase, and then you split them again into 3 for the next phase. Obviously, this is all organized beforehand. However, this kind of interaction and also like paying attention to what's happening, sometimes like even if you're split evenly, one group is doing substantially better at like killing their part, so you have to like talk to them, be like, hey guys, like fucking come help us out, okay? Like you guys are too strong. Okay, there's a lot more MMO interactions in Guild Wars 2. It's not even close. Running with a group of at least 30 other players is part of the norm. MMO wise, Guild Wars 2 is the most MMO PvE game out there. It's not even close. Okay? It is hard to do something solo and end up alone after even like half an hour of playing. That's just how it is. Right, so let's tally up the points. What we got here? Retail gets a 4. Classic gets a 5. OSRS gets a 2. ESO gets a 1. FF14 gets a 3. And Guild Wars 2 has another 6. Alright. Next. Boop, 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 boop. PvP. And this one, who is the 6th one? This is kind of hard for me to say. I want to say Classic WoW is the worst in terms of PvP, but FF14 is a really close second from the bottom. Okay? I honestly feel like, oh man, this is rough. This is rough. Should I just give them both 2 for this? So Classic WoW has Battlegrounds. Final Fantasy XIV has Battlegrounds. Classic WoW has World PvP. If you choose to go down the route. Final Fantasy doesn't, but it does have the Battlegrounds, and it also has the 3-way Battleground. It's not as big as World v World, but it is there. So you have like the 5v5s, like literally like just 2 teams, like a regular Battleground, and you have the 3-way free-for-all. 3-way deathmatch, I don't know what to call it. I guess free-for-all. And I am not sure what is technically more content. I do feel like... So here's the thing. With Final Fantasy XIV, you usually do the PvP for the... What do you call it? Battle pass, like the free battle pass that you get with the 25 ranks with their own rewards, and most of them are cosmetic. Okay, they don't really add anything to you. There's no gear, there's no, well, there are ranks. There is ranked here, and it is better at adjusting. I think this will be the 5th one then. The problem with Classic WoW, it is min-maxed PvP. World PvP doesn't really matter. You can do it for fun, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, BGs exist for you to rush to the victory. AV devolved from like hours and matches that go on for hours. It devolved into just running across one another to the end. Okay, AV in World of Warcraft Classic devolved into AV retail. Okay, it's min-maxed. Similar with any other battleground. Warsong Gulch is the same. Okay, you would rather lose as fast as possible if your team is weaker. Okay, there's never like a balanced queue. You're never like facing people at your own level, which is something that Final Fantasy XIV does with its PvP, with the battlegrounds. Okay, with the battlegrounds in Final Fantasy XIV, at the very least, you are fighting people your rank. Now, yeah, maybe one of the people that is playing is Smurf or whatever, but usually it feels pretty balanced. Okay, sometimes you also like just don't get a good composition, and it is what it is. At least it ends fast. The free-for-all, like the 3-way free-for-all, that one honestly is more about team coordination than it is about how geared people are, like how good people are. It is a lot more about that. And also, PvP in Final Fantasy XIV has its own scaling. So if you go into PvP, which unlocks like level 30, I believe, you are at the same level as level 80. You're not as min-max as them in terms of gear, but you are at least there. So it's like the advantage they have on you is not as big as it can be in something like World of Warcraft, where, people come at like higher item level than you and just massacre you, and they can take like 1v3 because they just are so much better. Also, there's not like hard counters as there is in World of Warcraft. Okay, hard counters in PvP, in my opinion, are fucking. It is a trash design. Mages, like warriors being unable to beat mages, essentially, like they're of the same skill level, is fucking stupid. Okay, same for paladins. Okay, it's fucking stupid. Like realistically, hard counters in PvP are shit. Soft counters, that's fine. Hard counters, that's fucking stupid. Okay. This applies to games like League of Legends. However, with League of Legends, when you have a hard counter, there are things you can do. In games like World of Warcraft, there's really nothing you can do. It's not like you can go farm to the side and outgear him for some reason. Okay. Fourth, in terms of PvP, man. Yeah. Yeah. I know World of Warcraft PvP is more popular. I get it. However, the PvP itself is pretty fucking gnarly. It's pretty shit. Okay? Arena, I'm not talking about like the top level of PvP. I'm talking about like the average level where most of people are, which is 1600 to 2100. Okay? I would even go as far as to say 1400, but honestly, that really doesn't offer much of a difference. Up to 2100, this is what PvP is like, okay? When it comes to Arena, ranked or not ranked, the strategy is lock down one target, CC the healer, or unless the target is the healer. Usually it isn't because it's not easy to just nuke a healer. Okay. Focus down one target, CC the healer, nuke the target. If he dies, you win. If he doesn't, it is the enemy's turn to do the same. Run around for a minute or two for your cooldowns to come back. Do it again. That is the average arena match. Most of them end in the first minute, which is great in my opinion, because somebody forgot to click their defensive buff. Sometimes there is baiting. Yeah, advanced strategies is baiting a cooldown and then running around and then blowing somebody up. In terms of tactical gameplay on an average PvP in World of Warcraft, it does not exist. Also, the amount of content for PvP is very low. You just have arenas, you have battleground. And the battlegrounds are all the shit. And the arenas honestly could be the same map all the time because they are essentially the same map that looks a bit different. The only one that is really different would be the Lordaeron one, the Undercity one, because there's a grave in the middle and you don't have pillars to hide behind, so you have to run circles around the grave. That's pretty much it. BGs in World of Warcraft, they're okay, but that's all there are. They are okay. The problem is, no matter how many BGs you're gonna throw, and by the way, I think the BGs in World of Warcraft retail are actually great. I'm not a fan of the PvP as a whole in World of Warcraft because of how the skills work. But in terms of just the content of PvP, I think the battlegrounds are actually great. They offer a variety from capture the flag, hold like a ball and bring it to the middle. Like holding the ball gives you points, bringing it to the middle gives you more points. You have capture the flag bases, basically Eye of the Storm, right? You capture a base, and then you have to defend it. You have the similar thing with Alterac, sorry, not Alterac, AB, Jesus Christ. Auric Bassin. Okay, AB is very similar. You capture a zone. Works a bit differently, I believe, in ranked versus how it is in regular, because regular you have to capture the flag, whereas like in ranked you just have to stand in the area or something. Or maybe it was one of those like special events. I don't remember, but I remember there's like a version where you don't need to capture the flag; you just have to stand in the area. Either way, zone capture, cool. Then you have the mining carts, also in my opinion, kind of cool, especially because you can change where the mining carts go to make them go longer. So the variety of the battlegrounds is great, and in my opinion, has more battleground variety than any other MMO in terms of like how the battlegrounds work. However, they all essentially boil down to who has the stronger team rather than who has the best strategy. It is very rare for you to be in a well matched environment in PvP. Let's move on to the next one. Next one is also kind of a close call. OSRS. Now, OSRS, technically, as from my understanding, because I don't play this game, and even if I did, I would never get to the point where I PvP in this game, because the gameplay is atrocious. But in terms of how much PvP variety you have, I think OSRS does take the cake here. Well, up to third place. Because of the variety it has. Has the castle sieges ish, right? The world PvP, the 1v1 arena, I think, and the way the combat works, there's no hard counters because there is no classes. So 1v1s is all about skill expression rather than just what kind of gear you have. So in that, because of that, and because the variety, in my opinion, is better, I think OSRS takes the cake. I just don't think PvP is popular. Okay, we're not talking about popularity here. We're talking about variety. If you talk popularity, okay, in terms of popularity, it's one or the other, honestly. This one, low queue times. This one, I saw last night, Swifty had a 5-minute cooldown for an RBG. Not cooldown, queue time. Okay, 5-minute queue time, not great. Guild Wars 2, however, very often you have queue times into maps. These are maps you can join at any point. If you have queue times, means the map is full. So in that regard, I still think that Guild Wars 2 is better. And it's more live, right? Not necessarily because of amount of players, but you can get into battles a lot faster, and the battles are better. Anyways, we'll get to Guild Wars 2. Next one is Elder Scrolls. And Elder Scrolls, in my opinion, is a very close first or a very close second, however you want to look at it. I do think Guild Wars 2 is just slightly better. But the BGs in Elder Scrolls are not, you're playing, some games you're going to be playing against people you destroy, and some queues you're going to be against people who just like, you can't even leave the base. They have like people who 1v5 you. They're just that good. Okay? And it's like, yeah, you can get good. I get it. But I'm just saying that's like, it is extremely not a fair matching system. As far, unless they changed it. But from what I read so far, because I did a bit of research before this, it's pretty much the same shit that it's always been. And it's a blast when you play with friends, even if you're losing. But man, a lot of BGs or fucking, they're all the same, essentially. All the BGs are the same. Capture an objective or steal something from an enemy base. And they are not matched properly. Like sometimes you just get to fight against insanely good players. Cyrodiil, the biggest problem I had with Cyrodiil, the camps that you can capture solo, they're like in the middle of nowhere, like a lumber yard or whatever, extremely hard to capture alone. Roaming in Cyrodiil is literally trying to gank someone who is out of place. It is really hard to do much of anything else in Cyrodiil. It is cool that it exists. It is cool that you can do all these things. But realistically, you cannot contribute at all alone in that open world area. And you have teleports to all of the keeps as long as they're under your control, and there's like a direct line of control, which makes it really annoying to take castles because people just respawn instantly in them. So your team has to be so much stronger. I don't like that imbalance. I want two teams to be equally as strong, and it should take a long time for people to run back to help defend it. If you're wiping the enemy team, you shouldn't be needing to wipe them again and again and again. You already have the disadvantage that the enemy also has NPCs that do decent damage inside. Obviously, it's not that much, especially when you're in a group with healers, but it's something, okay? So these features I don't like. Cyrodiil City, however, is great for that specific purpose, but it is too small and there are too many elite mobs for you to actively have like a proper fight with somebody and not get interrupted all the time. But in terms of just PvP content, just the open world, the aspect of the open world, in my opinion, Elder Scrolls takes it. But of course, Guild Wars 2 is gonna lead ever so slightly. There's a ton of stuff you can do solo in Guild Wars 2. There are people who are killing people while they're inside of a Zerg. Okay? It is crazy to see. Like, they're just really good people. We had a fight against one Mirage. I play Mirage. I was Mirage, and we had two more Necromancers. And we were fighting one Mirage for like 10 minutes, chasing him back and forth, fighting him. Dude, this guy was so goddamn good. I was trying to blow him up. He blocks at the perfect times. Like, how the fuck does he know, man? Okay, shit like that. He was a really good player. Properly uses his visibility, properly uses mobility. I lost sight of him so many times. And again, that is the whole purpose of Mirage. But he was incredible. I never see this in Elder Scrolls. In Elder Scrolls, I see people who are just like mega tanks, like the Dark Knights or whatever. Mega tanks, you're not gonna kill them. They built for tanking. You can bring 5 players and they will not die in World v World, okay? In Cyrodiil. Okay, they're just there to not die. Like, that is their existence. Okay, that is not fun. Okay, even in Guild Wars 2, if you build full tank healer, like a Templar or whatever, not Templar, like a Firebrand, if you're playing somebody who purely focused on damage, you should be able to kill them if you play it right. But if you didn't, you're not gonna kill them. Dude, tanks in Elder Scrolls, dude, you're not killing them. Like, you need like a very specific 3 to 5 man group to actually kill them, right? And again, the way combat also works, like with being able to break CCs on so often within like an 8-second cooldown, then because then like you have increased cost and stuff like that. But with how regeneration for stamina can be so insane, honestly, like locking down somebody is really, really hard. But that's more about like the gameplay feel and like gameplay mechanics. I don't want to go into it too much. But overall, I think Guild Wars 2 is just better. Only thing that Guild Wars 2 is really lacking in is, in my opinion, content variety for Battlegrounds. There's essentially on 2 Battlegrounds, which kind of sucks. But they are fast, you respawn fast, you get back into the action fast. They're more balanced because like they have specific balance purely for PvP. World v World has its own balance, PvE has its own balance, and PvP on its own not only has its own balance, you don't even need to grind any gear outside of PvP. Okay? Whereas World v World, you are getting gear from outside in order to use inside of World v World. All right, so what are the points? We got 3 over here. Classic is the 1. OSRS got a 4. ESO got a 5. Final Fantasy 14 got a 2. And Guild Wars 2 got another 6. 6, 6, 6. Okay, last but not... Actually, it is least. But the last one, okay? Last one is story. And we're gonna start... Oh boy. Story would include not only delivery, which in my opinion doesn't matter as much, but mostly how congruent the story is throughout the expansions. Is the game trying to tell you a story all the way throughout? Or are you watching... Okay, so for example, the difference between a show like The Mentalist and Black Mirror. Black Mirror has no story. Black Mirror, the stories are the episodes, but they have no connections between one another. Then you have The Mentalist, which is literally like a series of like, yeah, stuff are happening that are not as related to the main story, but it still builds something towards that eventual end. Like the relationship they're building in this story, right? The purpose of why he's doing what he's doing in the series, blah, blah, blah. And then throwing in the Red John sometimes, right? So those are differences, right? Take Black Mirror and a series like Game of Thrones, okay? Every episode adds to the story, whereas like Black Mirror, who cares what the previous episode was? They're all standalone episodes. And the king of standalone episodes, OSRS. It is just a mix of random stories in random areas. There's no real grand story. It's just the world. It has zones. Each zone has a bit of a story, and that's cool. There's really nothing that you need to know about anything in RuneScape in terms of story if you want to do something. The only reason you care about something is because you're trying to get something out of it. You don't really care about the implications this has for the world. Okay? And similarly to that would be Classic WoW. Classic WoW again. All of the stories are just zone stories. There is no grand story in Classic WoW. I actually want to make a video like I made in a video about through the expansions. I was gonna make a video about like every expansion's lore and what like the implications of it is. And there's like nothing. Like, there is a grand story behind World of Warcraft. Sure, there's a grand story behind RuneScape. Sure. But when you're playing the game, how much do you really get information about the Legion or the Old Gods? Yeah, you're fighting an Old God. Sure. And Deathwing was affected by Old Gods. And so also, like, you're fighting Deathwing's kids. But it's like, it's all fragmented stories. Every zone has a story that the zone relates to, and that's nice. But in terms of like grand scheme, one thing leads to another type of story, there is nothing like that in World of Warcraft. There's just a bunch of, in Classic, sorry, there's just a bunch of just fragmented stories of each zone. So that's why it's number 5. Next one on our list would be... Whoa. Yeah, I went way too far there, Retail. Why retail in number 4? Even though the story is more congruent, even though the expansions kind of tell a story one after the other, it always feels like the story ends at about 2 or 3 expansions in. Or they make some weird relation to the next expansion at the end of the first one. So for example, is there any relation between Classic to TBC? Not really. You finish Classic, with, what do you call it, with Naxxramas, which honestly, if it led into Wrath of the Lich King, would make sense. But it doesn't lead to the Burning Crusade. But we are going to the Burning Crusade. Does the Burning Crusade lead into Wrath of the Lich King in any way? Who's the last boss in Burning Crusade? Kill Jaden. The hell does Kill Jaden? I mean, he has something to do with the Lich King, sure, based on like Shadowlands. But realistically, when you're playing TBC, the hell does Kill Jaden or Illidan have to do with Wrath of the Lich King? Right? Nothing. Like, absolutely nothing. Okay, you play Wrath of the Lich King. What the hell does Wrath of the Lich King have to do with Cataclysm? Aside from, they added the raid in the last minute, Sanctum of Eternity, was it? Right? The 2 boss raid, or 3 boss raid technically. Right? 2 mini dragons and 1 big dragon. Okay. Like, and again, they threw it in just to connect to Cataclysm. What does Cataclysm have to do? Like, you see what I mean? There's no connection. There is a grand scheme that is happening behind the scenes with the old gods, with the Legion, well, up until Legion, basically, right? Like, it is there. But in terms of just like how congruent the story is, how it's related to one another, how each zone you're doing relates to the other zones and stuff like that, that almost never happens. It did change in Dragonflight, I'll give it that. Right, Dragonflight had more relation to the Dragonflight, to like the key story of the dragons. Even Legion didn't have that good of a relation between each zone. Each zone had its own kind of story. Suramar had no relation to High Mountain. High Mountain had no relation to like the Viking zone, whatever it's called. Forgot the name completely. Something Heim. Stormheim? Maybe. Okay. Odin had no relation to what do you call it? Odin and Hela have no relation realistically to Nighthold. Had no relation to the, what do you call it? Holy shit. Temple of Tomb of Sargeras. Okay. The only relation you had there is Tomb of Sargeras into Antorus. That is the only actual relation. Well, actually, you can say Nighthold was kind of keyed into it with Illidan, but you know what I mean. Like, most of Nighthold, aside from Gul'dan, really didn't like relate. That's what I mean. Okay, World of Warcraft, not too great on storytelling. The grand story of World of Warcraft, I love it, but in terms of storytelling, it's pretty damn shit. Okay, next one. This one is actually pretty rough. I am not sure which is... I think Elder Scrolls is a bit worse than Guild Wars 2. Okay, why Elder Scrolls a bit worse? I think there are many long stories, but very low relationships between each one. Every story is kind of like... They don't mix. Every DLC has a story that has nothing to do with the previous expansions. The main story has practically nothing to do with your race's story. So all the main stories are the same story. You go, you see your like Dark Wanderer guy, forgot his name, and you do the quest that he gives you. Doing the story of the zone, like that one is related to the story of the zone, but that's about it. There's no continuous story throughout the expansions. It's just zone stories as well. However, at least they're like long enough where the zones, like, it's a third of the continent. It's a story for a third of the continent. It makes more sense. And you can understand the relationship of where you are compared to how you relate to these guys and how you relate to the third guys, right? And why there is war between the three. So it tells you the story of the conflict that is happening live in, was Tamriel? Yeah, Tamriel, I believe. Right, live in Tamriel. So in that regard, the story is better, also told way better. Pretty much every quest is voice acted. The characters are pretty funny. Well, some of them better than other. Razumdar, man, love that guy. Right, but in terms of relations, it's like imagine you have a series like Game of Thrones, and instead the way Game of Thrones was built, season 1 would delve into the north, season 2 would delve into the Dothraki, season 3 would delve into the Lannisters, and then season 4 they all finally meet. Okay, like maybe, right? Like that's what the story in Elder Scrolls feels like. Guild Wars 2, however, feels like there's a clear line of progression. You are dealing with catastrophes and they relate to one another. So, for example, and this is spoilers if you've never played Guild Wars 2, there will be a bit of spoilers up until End of Dragons. I'm not going to spoil too much, but there will be. The first expansion, sorry, like not expansion, the first, what do you call it? The classic Guild Wars 2. Okay, you're dealing with one of the dragons waking up and starting to cause catastrophes. Okay. The second one, you're dealing with another dragon that woke up, and because of you dealing with the first dragon, something happened to the second one as well, and now you have to deal with him. The third one doesn't have much to do with either, but it builds up to the inevitable conflict between you and the last two dragons. Okay? And then you tie it all together. Actually, no, sorry. The third one, you are dealing with one of the dragons. I forgot about him. He went insane. Okay, he woke up as well, and he fucking went ballistics. And again, the reason kind of explained decently enough for it to be a congruent story. Then you are dealing with the last two dragons again, because no more dragons are left, and these guys are now vying for territory. Let's say it. Okay, I'm giving you half truths. Okay, and then the last one is you're dealing with one more dragon. Okay, that you are not sure where this dragon came from and what the duty of this dragon, but this dragon, I'm not gonna say more. But anyways, it's all connected up until that peak point. Everything after that, right now, I'm still waiting to see the connection. There is a bit of connection, consequences of the previous expansions, but it's weak. Okay? So in terms of story, I think Guild Wars 2 did a pretty good job, but it is not its key feature. It's just better than the other ones, in my opinion. But of course, the king of story, honestly, the game that should be called RPG MMO, not an MMORPG, by far is Final Fantasy XIV, specifically everything up to and including Endwalker. Allied raids have a story to tell that is related. The raids tell a story that is related to the main story. Everything is just so congruent, adds on, builds on one another. Okay, I don't know the story of the last expansion. There was a brief mention of this expansion at the end of Endwalker. But honestly, again, it feels like it was just thrown in there just to make the relation, but there's no actual relation. You know, it's kind of like we have to start a new story. It's gonna have to start slow, even though we fucking had like a storygasm in the last one, and it's going to be really fucking hard to get back on track. But still, I think Final Fantasy XIV is by far the best at telling its story. Like, it's not even close. Let's tally up those numbers. Retail gets the 3, Classic gets the 2, OSRS gets the 1, ESO gets the 4, Final Fantasy XIV gets the 6, and Guild 2 gets the 5. Alright, let's tally up who is the actual number 1. And you know what? I'm going to do it off screen, but feel free to do it with me. All right, so we got 915. That's a 20. We got a classic. We got a 14. We got the OSRS. Holy moly, that's yikes. Okay. the ESO, we got 16, and the FF14, we got the 10, 19, and of course 23, 26. So, last place, honestly, kind of expected it, but you never know. It was pretty close. It was pretty close. But this also, like, this is a nice way to say, this is why I am justifying myself. Because before I was like, I said this before. I don't like these two games. I think they're trash for 2025. I do think they are trash for 2025. Okay? Straight up. But they are in the top 5. But I think I explained enough comparing them to the other MMOs why I think they are really bad. So at the bottom, for the total score, with a 13, we have OSRS. With a 14, we have WoW Classic. Next, we have the Elder Scrolls with a 16. The Final Fantasy 14, a very close third, with a 19. With World of Warcraft retail at the 20. And I always believe these two are very close together. They are very close together. Okay? Both of them vertical progression. They're following a very similar formula. One, however, focuses more on story. The other one has the Mythic Plus content. In my opinion, which would, by the way, this would never happen. If FF14 had Mythic Plus, it would be better than World of Warcraft. It would. It just lacks the content. The main thing Final Fantasy 14 is losing on is the content. Repeatable content. Stuff to do other than raid, basically. Running the dungeons, they're like super easy, is not very interesting. There is really not much for you to do in Final Fantasy 14 once you finish the story. Unfortunately. That is. But of course, number 1, let's be real. I wouldn't say this is the perfect MMO. It does have issues. But man, it's not even close. This got a 26. And again, I think I was extremely fair in my analysis. Okay, comparing each one to the other, I think I was fair. I don't think I was too biased. I mean, dude, if I was biased, Retail WoW would not make it past 4th. Okay, Retail WoW, in my opinion, would have been 4th. I really don't like Retail WoW. I don't like the way they're running the game. I don't like where they're going with the game. I think they fucked up every expansion so far. I think stuff like Legion and WoD could have been multiple expansions. You did not need to rush through that story. Shadowlands could have been multiple expansions. You do not need to rush through that story. Okay, there's so much more we could have learned about the universe and could have done in that universe with many of the expansion. There's no way N'Zoth was a patch boss out of nowhere. You're introduced to N'Zoth and you kill N'Zoth. Are you fucking kidding me? N'Zoth should have been an expansion. That's how big of a deal he is. That's what I mean. I think they blundered way too much. Shit like that. But Legion, dude, easily 2 expansions, right? Going to Antorus, you know? Antorus, I think, is the raid. What's the name of the planet? Argus. Going to Argus should have been a whole expansion on its own. Easily a whole expansion, if not 2. You are on a brand new planet. Are you kidding me? The possibilities. I think World of Warcraft just blundered too much. That's what I'm saying. Like, in my opinion, I would not have put World of Warcraft at 2nd. I think it would have been 4th. So let me know what you think, if I was fair enough in my analysis. But I think I was pretty fair. Especially, again, this is all subjective. Feel free to argue this in the comments. Tell me why you think I'm wrong. I don't think I was too offensive against any of the MMORPGs. If you're offended, I mean, honestly, get a fucking life. But yeah, if you think I, made a mistake with something being at any point 6th or 5th, for gameplay, for content, for MMO PvE, for PvP, let me know. Maybe you can change my mind. We'll see.